And right now, I am so pleased to welcome Lindi Ortega to Q. Hi, Lindy.
Hello.
Do you remember? Do you remember when we first? I remember playing a gig with you and Alan Doyle and Stephen Page. Remember
Yes,
that?
that was fun.
That was very fun. You were the first person I ever saw with an iPad on stage. I remember we had to sing this
Oh,
cover at the end
right.
of the night.
Yeah, I didn't know the lyrics.
Neither did I. And I said, "Well, I don't know this person very well,
Yeah.
but I'm going to go and read off this weird glowing screen."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
now here,
now everyone does it.
now, yeah, no. Do you ever see people on stage that have the foot pedal?
No.
I saw this guy on stage. He showed it to me the other day, it was an iPad on a stand,
Yeah.
and he could press a foot pedal to make the lyrics.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty good, hey?
That is something else.
So what made you want to write a concept record this time around? Because a lot of musicians I know who write concept records, it's something that like we in the media put on an album, and then artists do this thing where they walk around and they go, no, you just think it's a concept record, but you are really owning this.
I'm totally owning it. Yeah, I just felt like it was time to do something different, think outside of the box a little bit, and instead of having I had people that come up to me after shows and tell me that some of my songs helped them through really dark times in their life, whether it be like a divorce or something awful like chemotherapy or something, and they say that the songs on some of my former records helped them deal with those things, and that really really struck a chord in me. And I thought, well, why have one song here and there on a record when why don't I just have a whole record that's dedicated to helping somebody through a struggle in life?
That's really amazing.
I thought it'd be cool.
Yeah, and how have the responses from the songs been so far?
Great. A lot better than I thought, actually. I know that spaghetti western style music is a very specific thing, and I really wasn't expecting, I thought, some people would really get it and love it and think it was fun, but the response has been a lot better than I actually anticipated it to be, so it's been a really nice surprise.
I know it's hard to define why we like the things that we like,
Yeah.
but what do you think draws you to those sort of? And the spaghetti western is really interesting because it is like an aberration of an actual thing.
Yeah.
Like it's not a nostalgia for an older American time.
Yeah.
It's almost a nostalgia for an Italian idea of nostalgia
Yes.
of America. So it's a really interesting form, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. I love the texture of it a lot, and I think musically it's really interesting.
What do you mean the texture of it?
Just musically, I feel like it sort of creates a certain texture that you don't hear in most other music, and it's very specific to what that is. So, like, for example, you hear horns, or you hear castanets, or you hear, twangy sort of guitar bits and pedal steels and stuff like that. And I know you might hear certain portions of those and other things. The way they come together in spaghetti western is really, really interesting.
So what were you listening to make this record? Were you listening to other composers? Were you listening to?
Yeah, I listened to Ennio Morricone. I got his greatest hits record and just had it on. It was funny because I'd get ready to go out, in the morning or whatever, and I put on that, and I felt like I was going to go to like a duel at sundown or something. So it was pretty good. I felt a bit like, an outlaw. Yeah. But I also am a huge fan of Quentin Tarantino, so I love a lot of his musical choices for the scenes in his movies, and I wanted to make a record that wouldn't seem out of place maybe in one of his movies.
Maybe if he's listening right now, maybe we can.
Oh, I'd hope so. That would be a dream.
Get a little placement. That maybe we can make. I'll take 10%.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it. I'm working it out. Do you find that, I think there's some artists say that they need absolute freedom to make the art that they need to make. What's interesting is that when you set out to make a concept record from the outset, you are by nature restricting yourself.
Yeah.
Did you find that useful?
That's why I kind of never wanted to do a concept record prior to this.
Yeah.
But I looked at it more as like a challenge and sort of a necessity for where I needed to go, and personally, and so, like, as much as it is sort of a restriction in that you are following a concept and a character, it was creatively the most artistic I've ever felt. And to be able to, like, display that creativity and go into a studio and just, like, imagine things and see them come to life and not have any restrictions on that was pretty cool.
And also to write, like, I associate you as a very personal writer, but I on this record, there's a lot of character writing. You're writing as others.
Yeah, there is definitely. I mean, I've done it before, like a song "Murder of Crows" that I have, where I bury a body in the backyard. I didn't actually do
Oh,
that.
I just assumed, and I've been terrified this entire time.
Well, I have been described as fun and frightening, so
Yeah. Oh, is that so?
so that would
That's
make
good.
sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like there's, I guess, nuggets of myself in almost everything that I write, so it's hard to really completely separate myself. But this in particular, I wanted to sort of, like I said, make an album that would help somebody through a struggle. And inevitably, everybody has a struggle in life, myself included.
Mhm.
So, of course, my own struggles are reflected within the characters in this album.
I'm going to talk about that in a second. If you're just tuning in, my name's Tom Power. You're listening to Q. I'm speaking with Lindi Ortega about her new album, Liberty. Yeah, you've been very open about, I don't mean to sound so shocked by that, but you've been very open about your struggles this year. And there was a Lenny letter you published. I feel slightly uncomfortable bringing this up, but I know you've been talking about it, and where you've talked about your battles with body dysmorphic disorder, how it's affected your career, how it's affected your writing. Before we touch on that, like, how does it feel to talk about something so personally, so publicly?
Well, I felt like I couldn't really talk about it before because I was still very much suffering from it. So I felt like I couldn't really offer anybody any sort of advice or guidance on it. And I mentioned in the Lenny letter, I don't feel like I'm cured, but I feel like I've found ways to cope with sort of the symptoms of body dysmorphic disorder, which can include anxiety attacks, panic attacks, depression. And depression, I think, was the worst thing for me. And I read a statistic that said body dysmorphic disorder has one of the highest suicide rates of the disorders out there. And that really that broke my heart to read that. And I thought, well, maybe if I talk about it, people will maybe not feel so alone. I think a lot of people don't talk about it because it's associated maybe with a vanity type of thing.
Well, I think that's what it's largely misunderstood. Right?
Yes.
People see it as you're not as, forgive me for this, like they don't see how good looking they actually are, or something like that's the stigma around
That's
it,
the
right?
stigma,
Yeah,
but it's really a lot
it's far more
deeper than that.
complicated
Yeah,
than
it's
that,
much
yeah.
complicated. And I think the thing I usually relate it to is it's sort of like anorexia, where you would look at somebody with anorexia and you would say, oh my gosh, they're very, very thin. They should probably gain some weight. Whereas they would see themselves in the mirror as being overweight, which seems kind of ridiculous to everybody else, but not to them. And that's very similar to body dysmorphic disorder. It's not an eating disorder, but it's you have sort of a distorted image of what you look like, and it causes a lot of, like I say, anxiety and panic attacks. And
do you think that was elevated because your job was to be so public, to be seen so much?
I think no, because it came on before I decided to become a musician. I think actually being a musician and my job and the nature of it has actually been a therapy in a lot of ways, in that it's made me confront things that I wouldn't typically give me anxiety, and I never would have confronted them if it weren't for music. So I mean, I would be afraid to be on camera, or I'd be afraid to get pictures taken, or
And you would dress a certain way, right?
Yeah.
I was reading that in the letter.
Yeah, I used to wear a birdcage veil all the time, and even though it's like a little piece of cloth that you can see my face through, that little piece of cloth gave me some sort of security blanket or safety to be able to perform and not think about these negative voices in my head.
How has the response been to that letter?
It's been really good. I've had a lot of people reach out to me, people who suffer with body dysmorphic disorder, who just thanked me for talking about it and giving it light. And I've had people that have had other experiences that aren't to do with that, but other sort of mental afflictions that they can relate. And
They come up and tell you stories.
yeah,
and
for sure. Yeah.
Do you think any of this manifested itself in your art at the time?
I think so. Yeah, I'm very much affected by my surroundings and what's going on in my life and what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. So I would be lying if I said that those things didn't play into my music. Like there is a song called "Demons Don't Get Me Down," and that very much, I think, speaks to it.
Conversely, are we hearing, and again, I'm not putting the burden of a cure, and as you said earlier, I'm certainly feeling better. Are we hearing that betterment in these songs as well?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it was yes, it's a reflection of course, my own struggles and getting through some things, but I also wanted to sort of provide the silver lining for everybody else. That's why I wanted to. I've written a lot of dark songs, and most of my albums sort of tear towards the darkness. But it was really important to me, after hearing other people's stories as well, that I show them that, like, you can get through this. You can get through things, and they might come up again. Like, you might have other struggles happen again, but you can still, if you battle the demon once, you can battle it again.
Because that's what I was going to ask you, because you said I didn't come out too publicly about it because I felt like I didn't have anything to say to somebody about it, but now you feel like you do.
I feel like I do, and I also feel like it's important to talk about it because it's not spoken about all that much, and so I think people feel ashamed, or they don't know that other people suffer from it, and they feel very alone in it. And I just want people that are suffering from it to know that they're not alone, and I don't want them to feel stifled by their disorder. Like, if I'm able to get up on stage and like follow my career and my passion in life while having this disorder, then so can they.
It's been such a pleasure having you in.
Thank you.